They say every mother dreams of her child's wedding. I never thought mine would look like this. There was no invitation, no phone call, not even a message asking if I was well. Just pictures posted online. Just rumors passed around. Just silence on the day I should have been everything. I stood beneath a tree across the road, far enough to be unseen, close enough to still be hurt. The guests looked beautiful. The flowers were white. The music played like a celebration of forgetting. In my hands, I held a gift, wrapped neatly in gold thread. Simple, quiet, like the love I raised him with. I saw him laugh. I saw him hold her hand. I saw him smile like nothing had ever been broken. I didn't wave. I didn't shout. I didn't walk up and ruin anything. I just stood still, like a shadow no one noticed, like a story no one tells. I heard someone whisper, "Who is she?" Another said, "She doesn't belong here." And maybe I didn't. Not anymore. There was a time he'd run to me in crowds. A time he'd grab my sari and beg to stay close. Now he couldn't look in my direction. He looked polished, handsome, like the world had rewarded him for forgetting. And yet all I could see was the child I once fed with my hands. The boy I stayed up nursing when his fever wouldn't break. The son I raised alone when the world gave us nothing. I gave him everything I had. My skin, my sleep, my strength. And when there was nothing left of me, he left me too. They said I wasn't elegant enough, not stylish enough, not presentable for the pictures. They said I'd ruin the mood, that I was too old, too plain, too embarrassing, that my face didn't match the decor. I never realized love could have a dress code. He didn't say those words to me, but I read them between the lines of his silence, and that silence was loud enough to fill a lifetime. So I stood behind the crowd, behind the flowers, behind the future he was building without me. I held the gift tight in my hands, a frame of his childhood, a letter I wrote when he turned 10, and a note that said, "I'll always be proud of you," even if he wasn't proud of me. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg for a seat at the table. I just stood there, watching the boy I raised become a man I didn't recognize, watching him dance in a room where I was unwelcome. I didn't cry. I just stood there, invisible but not broken. Not yet. There was a time I couldn't pass a mirror without smiling. A time when strangers complimented the curve of my cheek, the shine in my eyes, the grace in the way I walked. I remember the way my hair fell, long, black, thick like a monsoon night. I used to wear jasmine in it, not for anyone, just because I liked the way it made me feel. My husband once said, "You're the kind of woman stories are written about." And for a while, I believed him. Even my son, when he was little, used to touch my face and say, "Mama, you're the prettiest in the whole world." I would laugh, kiss his forehead, and whisper, "You're the only world I need." But mirrors change with time. Or maybe it's not the mirror. Maybe it's how we see ourselves after years of being unseen. Because after he was born, I stopped looking for my reflection. I started looking for ways to keep him fed, keep him warm, keep him dreaming. My hands were once soft, like rose petals. Now they're cracked from endless dishwashing, sewing torn pockets, wiping tears that weren't always mine. My eyes were once bright, full of songs and moonlight. Now they squint through recipes and grocery bills. They water not from beauty, but from onions, smoke, and silence. I used to dance, not for show, but in the kitchen, while the dal simmered and the radio played old tunes. I'd hold his tiny hands and spin us both into laughter. That was our world. Simple, full, beautiful. But beauty, it seems, has a timer, especially for women, especially when they give it all away piece by piece. Every time he cried, I rocked him till morning. Every time he fell, I kissed the bruise and made him brave again. And when he grew older and the world got harder, I gave him my time, my silence, my prayers. I never bought lipstick again. Never wore a sari just for myself. Never took a photo without thinking, do I look too tired to be loved? And maybe I was. Maybe all I had left was usefulness. And when that ran out, so did the warmth in his eyes. He didn't see beauty anymore. Not in my smile. Not in my sacrifices. Not in the woman who once held his whole world in her lap. He only saw age. He only saw plainness. He only saw something he didn't want the world to see. But what he forgot was that every line on my face was drawn from loving him. Every gray hair was earned during exam weeks. Every scar was stitched with loyalty. I gave him everything I had. My youth, my beauty, my dreams. And now when I walk past a mirror, I don't smile, but I don't cry either. Because this face has stories, and I no longer need anyone's permission to remember them. He married into a family that wants photographs, wants prestige, wants everything I was never asked to be. And I wonder, would he have invited me if I had worn makeup? If I had lost weight? If I had looked less like the woman who raised him, and more like the woman he wanted to claim? I don't hate him. No, hate is too expensive. But I do mourn him. The boy who once thought I hung the stars. I wish he had looked just once at the mirror I carry inside. The one where his face is forever 5 years old, covered in cake, screaming, "Mama, I love you the most." That mirror never cracked. Only the one he uses now. The one where he sees me through the eyes of shame. I didn't ask to be beautiful forever. I only wanted to be remembered beautifully. But I suppose even that was too much. I traded beauty for his future, and he traded me for shame. I called him 3 days before the wedding, just to ask something simple, something a mother might ask when she still believes she matters. I said, "Should I wear green or blue to your wedding?" He paused. That pause, it stretched longer than most people breathe, long enough for my heart to know something was coming. He said, "You're not coming." At first, I thought I misheard. I waited for a laugh, a soft, "I'm joking, Ma." But it didn't come. "You won't fit in," he said. Just like that. 3 words that opened a hole inside me. I asked quietly, "What do you mean?" He said, "It's not personal. The vibe is different. The guests, the setting. It's just better this way. Not personal." As if erasing a mother is a business transaction. As if this face, this body that carried him, didn't match the color scheme of his perfect day. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead. I didn't remind him that I used to feed him with one hand and so with the other. I just said, "Oh." He started explaining things I didn't ask. About photographers, about image, about how it's Neha's family and they're very particular. He said, "It'll just be easier for everyone." Easier. As if my presence was a complication. As if love could be measured in how well you blend into background decor. I could hear it in his tone. Not cruelty, not anger, just distance. Cold, clean, final. He didn't scream. He didn't curse. He didn't blame me. He simply cut me out. And somehow that was worse. Because anger I could understand. But this was something else. It was shame. It was embarrassment. It was him looking at me and seeing a flaw he wanted hidden. I remember staring at the wall after the call. The silence in the room felt louder than his words. My hand still held the phone long after the screen went dark. I wanted to cry, but the tears stayed stuck. Like they were ashamed to fall for someone who'd already fallen so far. For hours, I sat replaying that call in my head. Not just the words, but how softly he said them. No trembling, no regret. Just resolution, like he'd been preparing to say it for a while. I thought of the little boy who once danced in my arms on rainy nights, who once asked if I could sit in his classroom so he wouldn't miss me, who once said he'd never marry unless I approved. And now here he was, disinviting me from the happiest day of his life because my presence didn't suit the scene. I thought maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe I could still come, just sit at the back, quiet, no pictures. Just watch. But I knew I wasn't wanted. Not even in the shadows. He didn't scream it. He whispered it. And that hurt more. I found the guest list on her cousin's Facebook post. A snapshot of white envelopes lined up on a velvet table. Names handwritten in gold. 57 guests. I wasn't one of them. Not even at the bottom. Not even with a misspelling. Not even hidden in the folds. I zoomed in again and again. As if maybe I was there, just invisible to my own eyes. But no, I was not invited. I was not remembered. I was not required. I scrolled through the wedding page they made together. Hashtag Neha and Arjun forever. Every photo was joy wrapped in gloss. Every smile filtered in soft light. There was a timeline. How they met. Their first trip. The proposal in Bali. The engagement party I never knew happened. Each image said the same thing. We are happy. We are whole. We don't need the past. I wasn't mentioned. Not once. Not as mom. Not even as thanks to the woman who raised me. I didn't exist in their love story. Not a photo. Not a caption. Not a trace. As if I'd been scrubbed clean from his life. Like I was a mistake he outgrew. A shadow not worth naming. I checked his profile. New cover photo. Him, smiling in a white sherwani. Her in red. His arms around her waist. Someone commented, "You've come so far." He replied, "Only forward from here." Forward. That word stung. Because it meant I was backward. A step he didn't want to take again. I closed the app and sat in silence. Not the kind you hear. The kind you feel. The kind where the world moves on and leaves you still. No calls. No messages. No mention. The tea I brewed went cold. The chair across me stayed empty. And my name felt heavier than ever. I wasn't just missing. I was erased. Like a chalk name in the rain. Like a story that embarrassed the ending. Like a photo too blurry to keep. They deleted me. Like a blurry photo. Unwanted and forgotten. The sky was clear that morning. The kind of blue that only appears on days meant for happiness. Cars lined the street in front of the venue. Polished. Decorated. Full of laughter. I walked there. No one noticed. I wasn't meant to be noticed. The music reached me before the people did. Dull beats. Laughter. Cheers. Voices that once called me auntie. Now brushed past me like I was dust. The gates were covered in marigolds and money garlands. Golden names printed on white fabric. Arjun weds Neha. No surname for me to recognize. No space for the woman who gave him his name. The guards didn't ask me anything. They didn't need to. I stood outside the boundary where belonging ended. The gift in my hand felt heavier than it should. A small box, wrapped in old silk. Inside it, a photograph. Him, at 5, covered in cake. Beside it, a silver chain I wore on my wedding day. And a note, for when you remember who held your hand first. I placed it gently on the gift table near the entrance. One of the planners saw me. She opened her mouth to say something, but my eyes asked her not to. She turned away. I stayed there a moment longer, listening. The ceremony had started. The priest's voice floated out with the wind. Prayers for unity, for new beginnings, for blessings. I stood under the Gulmohar tree across the road. Same spot I had come to once before. When he was in college and I brought him lunch. Back then, he waved at me like he was proud. Today, he didn't even know I was there. They danced after the vows. He twirled her under strings of fairy lights. Her smile glittered. His eyes were on her like she was his entire world. I didn't cry. I didn't interrupt. I didn't move. Someone took photos. The kind that would go on walls and covers. The kind where I would never exist. And yet I stood still, holding every breath like a thread I couldn't drop. No one noticed the woman in the distance. Not even him. They cut the cake. They kissed. They posed with friends, with family, with everyone who fit in. He smiled wide for the camera, and I let him. I sat on the edge of my bed that night. The wedding was over. The music had faded, and so had I. The room was quiet, except for the creaking of old wood beneath me, and the soft sound of my breath. Slow, steady, like a woman trying not to fall apart. I reached for the metal box I keep under my pillow. Not for security, for memory, for pieces of a past I once carried like treasure. The lid clicked open, and the scent of old paper and time rose into the air. Faint ink, dust, a trace of talcum from when he was a baby. The first thing I saw was his sock. Tiny, blue, the kind that slips off a newborn's foot no matter how tightly you tug it on. I used to warm them on my palms before putting them on his feet. Then came the drawing. A crooked sun. A stick figure with long hair. Mommy, it said in a scribbled red crayon. My nose was too big. My eyes too far apart. But it was the most beautiful portrait I'd ever received. Next, report cards. All A's in English. Quiet but bright, one teacher wrote. I remember sitting beside him on the kitchen table, sounding out spelling words while boiling rice. I found the invitation to his school play, the one where he was the tree. He didn't want to go on stage. I told him, even trees can stand tall. He smiled, performed, came running into my arms after. Then, the envelope. I opened it slowly. Inside, wrapped in tissue, his first lost tooth. I had saved it, not because I believed in the tooth fairy, but because it felt like a moment I'd never see again. It had fallen out while he was eating guava. He cried, afraid of the blood. I kissed his cheek and said, "You're growing up now." He grinned through tears, proud to be big, proud to be brave. I remember thinking, someday he'll lose more than teeth. He'll lose toys, friends, fears, but I never thought he'd lose me. I held that little tooth in my palm like a jewel. So small, so full of history. I pressed it to my chest and whispered, "I loved you so completely. How did you forget?" I ran my fingers over the photos. His first birthday, cake all over his nose. His second, holding a balloon tighter than his own hand. His seventh, missing teeth, but never missing laughter. I kept every picture, even the blurry ones, even the ones where I looked tired and worn, because I never wanted to forget. Not a smile, not a tear, not a second of being his mother. But he forgot, so easily, so quietly. He forgot the nights I stayed up sewing buttons on his school shirt. He forgot the years I walked to work so he could take the bus. He forgot the sound of my bangles, the smell of my food, the way I used to hum when folding his clothes. He forgot my hands, even though they once held his world. I folded everything back into the box, one by one, like closing a book no one else wants to read. And I realized something then. I had been there for every first. His first step, his first word, his first love letter. But he couldn't be there for my last. The last smile I had saved for him. The last hope I carried to his wedding gate. The last place I stood, waiting to be seen. I sat at the table, the one I used to feed him at, where we did homework, where I once told him how to spell forgiveness. The pen felt heavier than usual, like it knew this would be the last time I wrote as his mother. Not because I stopped loving him, but because he stopped seeing me. The paper was clean, white, unwrinkled, like a new beginning, or maybe a final page. I didn't write in anger. Anger is loud. This was quieter, sharper. I didn't cross out anything. I didn't rewrite. I let every word come out as it lived inside me. Unrushed, undressed, undeniable. I wrote, "You were my first love. Before I knew what love even meant. You were my reason to wake up. Even when the mornings came with nothing but struggle. I gave you everything. My hands, my time, my dreams. I gave you the last sweet from the box, the warmer blanket, the fuller plate. I never wanted to be in the spotlight, only beside you. Not in the front row, just in the row that mattered. You don't owe me your success. You don't owe me your money. You don't even owe me gratitude. But I thought, you might owe me a chair at your wedding. Not because I'm perfect, not because I'm pretty, but because I'm the reason you're here to begin with. Instead, you chose silence. You chose image. You chose to cut the roots and still expect the tree to stand. I want you to know, I did see your wedding. From the road, from the outside, from the place you left me standing. And still, I smiled. Because you smiled. This box holds a photograph. You on your first birthday. Cake on your nose. Joy in your eyes. Before shame ever reached your heart. It also holds the silver chain I wore when I married your father. The only piece of jewelry I saved after he passed. I thought maybe someday your bride would wear it. But that dream was mine. And I'll let it go now. Lastly, it holds this letter. Not for guilt. Not for pity. Only for truth. Because I won't shout my pain. I won't post it online. I won't beg for kindness from people who measure love in aesthetics. I gave you the gift of my silence. Here's what it cost me. They opened the gift 3 days after the wedding. After the lights came down. After the guests flew home. After the filters were applied and the captions posted. It sat there among the expensive boxes. The watches, the perfumes, the imported cutlery. But mine wasn't wrapped in gloss. Just soft silk, tied by hand. Like something from another time. Neha picked it up first. Curious. Confused. She untied the knot like it might fall apart if handled wrong. She opened the lid. A photo. A chain. A letter. The room went still. No one said a word. She read the letter in silence, start to finish. Not once did she look up. Not once did she interrupt the lines. Not once did she smile. He stood beside her, still basking in the afterglow of celebration. And slowly, that glow began to dim. Not because I accused him. I didn't. Not because I insulted him. I didn't. But because the truth settled in. Like dust on polished glass. He read it next, slower than her. His lips moved, but no sound came. He paused after certain lines. The one about the chair. The one about the chain. The one about standing outside the gate. I wasn't there to see his face, but I didn't need to be. Because silence tells everything. She asked him quietly, "Why didn't you invite her?" And for the first time, he had no script, no rehearsed speech, no polished excuse, just a long pause, then something soft. "I didn't think it mattered." That's the line that did it. Because it did matter. Not because of appearances, but because he forgot the woman who mattered first. Neha didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked at him like she was seeing something new, and not something good. There was no drama, no argument, just a shared discomfort that sat in the middle of the room like a mirror no one wanted to look into. The honeymoon didn't end with a fight. It ended with truth. And truth, when it arrives late, arrives loud. They didn't post about my gift. It didn't make it to the wedding album. It didn't earn likes or comments. It wasn't photogenic, but it left a mark. Because some truths don't need to shout. They just need to be opened. And some truths echo louder than applause. It started with a photo, a blurry image taken from a phone. A woman in a plain sari, standing under a tree, clutching a small gift. Someone posted it on their story. Caption: random woman outside the wedding venue. Said nothing, just watched. No one expected it to matter. But then another post came. A video this time. Me placing the gift near the gate. Turning away. Not saying a word. A stranger's voice in the background. Did she get lost or something? And someone else answered. I think she was his mother. The clip spread, then multiplied. Suddenly, silence had gone viral. I wasn't tagged, but I didn't need to be. Who was she? Wait, why was she outside? Isn't that Arjun's mom? Why wasn't she invited? More people shared it. Someone posted a childhood photo of Arjun. Me holding him, both of us laughing in a faded living room. Side by side with the gate photo. They called it Then versus Now. What changed? I read the comments. Not to feel vindicated. Just to see if anyone else remembered me. She looked so kind. There's pain in the way she stood still. My heart broke when she didn't go in. Why are mothers being treated like disposable decorations? Some people were angry. Some shared their own stories. My mom wasn't invited either. I wish I had just one more day with my mother. How could he not invite her? He'll regret it. Maybe not today, but one day that silence will scream. Journal pages reposted it. Influencers talked about it. Family channels used it as a teachable moment. Neha's cousin commented, "She raised him alone, didn't she?" I remember meeting her once. So soft-spoken. Sweet. She used to pack his lunch herself. One girl replied, "She's the kind of woman you forget until you need comfort." A woman from the venue staff posted, "She left the gift and walked away. No questions. No fuss. Just grace." That was a real mother. The posts flooded in. Clips, quotes, articles titled, "The Mother at the Gate." The cost of image. When silence speaks louder than vows. Someone messaged Arjun's account directly. "You smiled in every photo." But hers was the only one that hurt. He turned off comments, then deactivated his account for a while. But the internet has a memory now. One that stretches deeper than his curated timeline. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't scandal. It was truth. Truth wrapped in stillness. Truth without a microphone. Truth that didn't demand attention, and so it got it. Because kindness doesn't always make headlines, but when it does, it rewrites everything. A teacher from his school reposted the clip. She used to come to every parent meeting. Quiet, yes, but never absent. Even people who hadn't seen me in decades remembered. She used to share food with our family when we were struggling. She taught me how to sew my first blouse. She was the only adult who noticed when I cried at school. I hadn't realized how many people I'd touched, simply by being present. And maybe that's the strange thing. He silenced my voice, but the world gave it back. The first call came at 8:14 p.m. 1 week after the wedding. I let it ring. No vibration, no sound, just the screen lighting up. Arjun calling. I watched it blink for times, then fade to mist. The second call came the next morning, then a third, then voice messages. I didn't open them. Not right away. I knew what he wanted to say. I could feel it hanging in the air. That soft weight of words arriving too late. One message after another, each one a fragment of guilt, a thread trying to pull me back in. I waited 3 days, then sat in the quiet, placed the phone on the table, and pressed play. Ma, please call me back. Delete. I didn't know it would hurt you this much. Delete. Everyone's talking about it. I can't sleep. Delete. I should have handled it differently. Delete. I'm sorry. Pause. My thumb hovered over that one. I replayed it once, then deleted it too, because apologies are currency. And he had already spent my love. He kept calling for days, different times, different tones, but the same silence followed each one. I didn't answer, not out of anger, not out of pride, but because peace is sometimes choosing not to reopen the wound, just because someone finally found a bandage. He wanted to talk, but I had nothing left to say. Not because I didn't love him, but because I had loved him for too long. All by myself. I deleted the call log, cleared the inbox, set the phone down like it no longer held my life inside it. It felt light. People think healing looks like reunion, but sometimes healing is silence, the kind you give yourself after years of screaming inward. He called, and I didn't pick up, because I didn't need to hear it. I already knew what regret sounded like. He once fit in the crook of my arm, curled like a secret I never wanted to tell the world. Eyes barely open, fists soft and unsure. I remember feeding him with a steel spoon, blowing on every bite. He used to open his mouth like a baby bird, trusting without question. Now I see him on magazine covers, in designer suits, cameras flashing, headlines calling him self-made. But I remember his first step, the stumble, the way he cried, until I clapped, and then he smiled, because my pride was enough applause. I remember braiding his hair before school. He hated the oil, but he liked the way I sang while combing. Now his hair is styled perfectly, styled by someone else, framed in photo shoots, approved by strangers. He once held my finger at the market, wouldn't let go. Even when I reached for vegetables, he tugged on my dupatta and said, "Mama, don't go far." Now he walks red carpets, arm in arm with elegance, and I am not even a shadow behind him. There was a time he'd fall asleep in my lap, murmur dreams into my sari. I used to watch his chest rise and fall, like the tides of something sacred. Now he falls asleep in hotels I'll never step into. Whisper secrets to people who never held him through fevered nights. They call him polished, confident, charming. I remember his stutter, the way he used to say elephant as elegant, and I never corrected him. Because to me, he was both. He belonged to me once, when he had nothing, when he wore clothes I stitched by hand, when his dreams were scribbled on notebook pages, and his only audience was me. Back then, my approval was enough. My smile was his mirror. My lap was his world. Now, he belongs to the world, and the world never asked who shaped him. I sit with the silence now. Not bitter, just still, because I've learned something they'll never print. Success raised him, but I made him. I woke up and opened all the windows, let the sunlight fall where it hadn't in years. No shadows today, no dust sitting quietly on what used to matter. I picked up the framed photo, the one near the lamp, of him in graduation robes, smiling like the world had just begun. I held it in both hands, not to mourn, not to cry, just to see how it felt to let go. It didn't hurt. Not anymore. I wrapped it in an old shawl, and placed it in the bottom drawer of my dresser, not in anger, but in peace. That corner didn't feel empty. It felt ready. I wiped the table, lit a stick of sandalwood, and brought out the vase I'd kept hidden for years, the one with painted lotus flowers. I filled it with marigolds, bright, loud, alive, colors that didn't ask permission to take up space. I rearranged the cushions, hung the dupatta I wore at my wedding across the window. Its faded gold thread caught the morning light. Not perfectly, but beautifully. I brewed tea in my favorite kettle, the chipped one with the green handle. And this time, I poured only one cup. I didn't wait for a phone call. I didn't check for messages. I didn't count the ways I might still matter to someone else. Instead, I sat at the table and mattered to myself. I looked around the room. No photos of him on the walls. No trace of the boy who left. Only the woman who stayed. Not bitter. Not broken. Just returned. Returned to a version of herself that had been buried under birthday's mist. And apologies never sent. That day, I didn't erase him. I simply made room for me. I didn't need to forget him. I just needed to remember me. I looked in the mirror again. Same lines, same tired eyes, same silver strands that once embarrassed me. But something had shifted. I didn't flinch. I didn't lower my gaze. I didn't search for a younger version of myself. I just looked, fully. Finally, this was the face that stayed up through storms, that smiled through rejection, that aged not from neglect, but from devotion. These hands didn't wrinkle from time. They wrinkled from work, from love, from building someone else's life before I had the chance to build my own. I wasn't flawless, but I was fierce. I wasn't polished, but I was permanent. I wasn't too ugly for the wedding. I was too beautiful for that lie. Have you ever watched your child forget your face? Not suddenly, but slowly, like the fading of a scent, the soft closing of a door. It doesn't hurt all at once. It hurts in waves, in pauses, in the silence between calls that never come. Maybe you've been there too, at the edge of someone's joy, uninvited to the life you helped build. Maybe you've stood outside a moment that should have belonged to you. If you have, I want you to know, you're not alone. Some of us are not remembered in speeches or photo frames. We are remembered in the shape of resilience, in the echo of every sacrifice that asked for nothing in return. I don't hate him. I just no longer wait for him. Because love, real love, also knows when to let go. So if you're listening, and you've ever had to love someone from a distance, they created on purpose. Tell your story. There's strength in speaking. There's healing in being heard. He smiled that day, and I let him. But he'll remember. That smile cost him a mother,